Keith Lundberg and Daniel Drotzman.
Two such magnificent specimens of manhood.
Bringing you live market update, analysis, and farm news.
I beg your pardon?
On 570 WNAX.
Good afternoon and welcome to your afternoon 5-State Farm Report. Thanks for joining us here today on this Friday. It's a pleasure to have you all with us. So as we kick off your program here today, we have a special guest that we are excited to welcome on here, Randie Culbertson. She is an Iowa State Extension cow-calf specialist joining us here today. So Randie, thank you for joining us, and how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm good, and I'm, happy to be on today. So thanks for inviting me on.
Absolutely. Yeah, we always like talking with you, and always like you're getting an update from you on what's going on in Iowa Extension. So I guess with that, it's been a pretty busy summer, I would say. It's been busy for us, and I'm sure it's been busy for you. So I know, and it's been busy for our producers too. So I guess throughout most of Iowa, cows and calves should be on pasture. So maybe just give us a quick update on what you've kind of been hearing from your producers on, have you guys continued to get rain across Iowa, and our pastures looking okay there?
Yeah, so, I just talked to our forage extension specialist, Shelby Gruss, the other day, and for us here in Iowa, our pastures have been, for the most part, looking pretty good. We got a pretty good shot of rain, and in some areas, maybe a little too much rain. 4th of July weekend, then we had a bit kind of a dry week, and then we got another good shot of rain again. So for the most part, pastures are looking pretty good. We've been getting rain. Like I said, in the central Iowa area, we had a little bit of flash flooding happen, but other than a few basements getting flooded, I think everything we made it through. So, but that's helped the pastures, getting that rain, and then it was hot, so the grass just sort of shot up from there.
Yeah, well, it's really nice to hear at least somebody's getting some rain. Here in Yankton, we got a little bit of I think here at WNAX, we got like an inch last night, which was kind of our first rain shower here in a while. So, across Nebraska, across the Dakotas, it's been a little dry. And so I know pastures were kind of getting crunchy in some areas, but I guess with that, one management practice, if you're running short on forage, can be to early wean. And know this may not be so relevant to Iowa, but I know a lot of places in our, South Dakota, Nebraska areas might be dealing with this and might be thinking about it. So when it comes to maybe early weaning, I guess any tips or management suggestions there?
Yeah, so when you're thinking about weaning early, anytime with weaning, you got to kind of think ahead and have a plan, right? So, because weaning is a stressful event, and then if we're weaning on calves that are even younger than we would normally wean, we need to think ahead. And the big thing is you need to think about how you're going to transition them onto feed. So thinking about that strategy. So typically we recommend at least 10 days prior to weaning, start to transition those calves on some feed, start providing some feed for them. Creep feeding is a great way to kind of help with that transition as well. So, at least 10 days out ahead, make sure you start to transition them. We'd like to say the lowest way of, there's multiple ways of decreasing stress during weaning. The ideal is if they're in a pasture, we just remove the cows. The calves can stay in their pasture in an area that they know. But that may not be an option if you've got a drought scenario. So if you're going to have to move those calves into a pen, some things you need to consider, especially when drought is the reason why we're doing this early weaning, is you got to think about how you're going to manage dust, because those calves are probably going to walk those fence lines, they're going to kick up dust, and that can cause some respiratory issues. So think about is there a way that you can maybe mitigate that dust? And there's also some other strategies where maybe you put the feed bunk perpendicular to the fence, and same thing with water. So as those calves are walking that fence line, they're going to kind of bump into the food and be like, oh, here's our food source. Oh, here's our water source, things like that. There's, like I said, there's a multitude of low-stress handling options out there. One might be, fence line weaning. So they can still see the cows, can have contact, and just sort of, help wean them that way. But when it comes to early weaning, especially when it's a drought scenario, sometimes you got to deal with the scenario that you've got. And so, the big thing is going to be thinking ahead, how you're going to wean them, where you're going to put them, and, you got to think a little bit ahead. The other thing, too, is it's going to be a big shock to their immune system. So you want to communicate with your vet and have a good vaccination protocol in place and, try to do your best to kind of mitigate any health issues that might arise. And so that's a good time to just check in with your vet and develop a plan before you do the early weaning.
Absolutely. That is a good piece of advice. Just, have a plan. And, that goes a long way for sure. So I guess on another note, as now we kind of touched weaning, it's also kind of the time when producers, if they haven't already, are maybe thinking about, pulling bulls and doing that side kind of thing and preparing for next year's calf crop. And so if they have pulled bulls, we can always early pregnancy check, which is always a good thing. And ultrasounding is usually a popular choice. So, any tips around ultrasounding, or how early can we usually do that?
Yeah, so when it comes to preg checking, you can do a palpation, you can do preg ultrasound, or a blood test. And there's pros and cons to all of those options. A palpation, you probably want somebody with a lot of experience because we can see you can see some pregnancy loss because of that. Ultrasound is kind of what the go-to that we go to now, right? So that you can go in, ultrasound, you can see the health of the fetus. You can sometimes notice, too, if maybe they're starting to lose that pregnancy for some odd reason, and you can age the calf. You can do both of those with palpation and ultrasound. But ultrasound, we can pick up a pregnancy as early as about 28 to 30 days is when you're going to start to be able to detect that pregnancy with an ultrasound. The other option is doing a blood test. So you run them through, you take some blood, you send it off to the lab. It's going to send you a result, pregnant or not pregnant. It's, pretty easy to do that, but the downside compared with a blood test compared to an ultrasound is you're probably not going to get the age of the fetus. Where you're going to get a pretty good idea with ultrasound of how far along that cow is in her pregnancy, and you can make some plans when it comes to calving season and kind of think, okay, well, these are going to calve earlier, these are going to calve a little bit later. So that's kind of really the advantage of using ultrasound over the blood test. But about 30 days is about the earliest we're going to be able to detect, 28 to 30 days about the earliest you're going to be able to detect the pregnancy.
Gotcha. All right. A lot of things to think about there as we, come to about that time to start making some of those management decisions. So, I guess with that, Randie, we're kind of coming up here to about 10 minutes. So we'll just go end with this, as for extension, do you guys have any events coming up, educational opportunities, or anything in general for extension that we should kind of keep on our radar here?
Oh, yeah. We for sure have lots going on. So we've got some for the summer. We've got some pasture walks and fencing clinics that are coming up. But our big meeting that we really have coming up is our Applied Reproductive Strategies for Beef Cow meeting that's going to happen in Des Moines on November 10th and 11th. This is a national meeting, and it's coming to Iowa this year. And so it's hosted, we're hosting it, but it's held by the Beef Repro Task Force. And so if you have any reproductive questions, things like that, this is the group to talk to, and this is the meeting to go to. So they're going to talk about all the newest technologies when it comes to reproduction and updates on any of the estrus sync protocols and all those things. So that will be here in Des Moines, November 10th and 11th. And, to keep up to date with what we've got going on at the Beef Center, you can follow us on Facebook, and we post all of our events and stuff on Facebook. So all the fencing clinics and pasture walks will be posted there.
Perfect. All right. So make sure to check out your Facebook, and also maybe the website, too, would probably have all that information as well, right?
Yep, our website, and we do have a newsletter, or Growing Beef newsletter. So we keep, that comes out every month, and it'll list all of our events and also some helpful tips.
Perfect. All right, Randie, thank you for joining us here today and filling us in on what you guys are working on there at Iowa State Extension. So you have a great rest of your day and have a great weekend. So again, thank you.
Well, thanks for having me on, and have a great weekend.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right. That's Randie Culbertson. She is an Iowa State Extension cow-calf specialist joining us here today on your afternoon 5-State Farm Report. So with that, we will take a quick break. We'll take a look at some weather. Colin will have that. And then here at the bottom of the hour, we'll check in with Zach Tyndall, and we'll do our commodity wrap. So stay tuned.
The voice of the Midwest, 570